This is part 2 of the Bluebeam demonstration. I'm going to be starting today by showing another way to export your floor plans out to get them a little bit cleaner or change what you are showing on your pages before you send them into Bluebeam. So for today's demonstration, I am going to show level 1 again, but I'm going to be doing a blocking diagram of it. And in order to do that, especially with this conceptuals, we're going to be getting into it. We don't need to see all of these sections and dimensions and grids and such. I'm going to come over and I'm going to right click and duplicate that sheet, but I'm also going to duplicate with sheet detailing so that it retains the information from that sheet. And then I'm going to duplicate the floor plan as well. And I'm just going to call this level 1 blocking. I'm going to go back to my sheet, make some updates in the naming in case we are wanting to keep the title block, and then adding that view onto the sheet. Now when we make changes to this view, annotatively and graphically, it will only affect this view. So with this on, I'm going to activate the view by double clicking into it, and I'm going to do VH, view hide, which is the same as right clicking on an item, doing hide in view, and then by category. That will hide all of the different elements we don't want to hide, including our section markers, dimensions, and grids. Now, since we're probably going to be using more graphical text when we are developing our blocking diagrams, we also do not need to have our title block on here. So we're going to select the view and we're going to come up and just say no title. Now that we have a nice clean view, we can export at this point. I'm just going to be exporting from here as a PDF. And once we've gone in and picked the sheet that we want to export, we can go ahead and export the file and open it into Bluebeam. So upon exporting the file and then getting it into Bluebeam, this is what it's going to look like for us. And just as I was demonstrating with the bubble diagram, all of your different shapes that you want to draw and the way that you fill them are all around the sides and the top. But for our blocking diagrams, we're going to be using a mix of rectangle and occasionally polygons. Rectangles are obviously going to be for our square, linear, rectangular, and even in some cases circulation. And then the polygon is going to allow us to make the more complex shapes of rooms that may not have an exact rectangular shape. Let me demonstrate by adding in a couple. I'm going to go into rectangle, and then I'm going to go up to the top, and this is when we're going to want to start deciding our spaces. Maybe we even lead with a legend so that we can decide what our colors are going to be before we get into brainstorming our layouts. Now, since blocking diagrams, just like bubble diagrams, often work best with iteration, what we're actually going to be creating first is going to be our template for our blocking diagram for this project. So let's start with our rooms. For this exercise, we're going to be breaking things down by the specific room names. For this demonstration, I'm going to be using generic commercial space names, although the names that you will need to put together for this project may be different, but the process in creating them is the same. Let's start with a common one, reception. For the reception, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to pick a color for the line. Let's go ahead and go with green. And then you just want to make sure that the fill matches the line. And we're going to start creating our legend. Let's create a square. I'm going to hold shift, which is going to force it into a square shape, and then let go. And then I'm going to add the text next to it. Over here on the right side, you're going to see an A inside of a box. You're going to click that. And then we just want the text to just be a black color. And then pick whichever font you would like. We don't have to worry about fill and line for this unless we want to outline these names, which we likely will not do. We'll likely outline the entirety of the legend. I'm going to draw a rectangle to start the shape of the text, and then I'm going to type in reception. Now, this definitely isn't big enough, so after finishing, ensure that that text box is selected, and then let's increase the size of it. And then I'm going to click and drag to line it up with the box. Now, to make things more consistent, I'm going to select the box and the text. I clicked V, which is the same as going to the select tool down here. And I'm going to do a drag box to select both of those items. I'm going to use Control C, which is the same as copy, and Control V to paste. And then I'm going to place another square and text directly below. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to select both of them with being a total of 4 items, and I'm going to copy and paste that down as well. You can probably see where this is going. I'm going to just go ahead and select that and copy and paste that to the right. And then I'm going to demonstrate this as if there is 12 items. If you need 16, if you need less, you'll obviously just space these out a little bit more. Now this gives you the chance to go back and change the colors and the text representing each of the areas. I'll demonstrate that with a few. I'm going to select the first box, and we're going to go with red for this one. And then the third box, we're going to have it be blue, fill and outline. Don't forget to do both. And then we're going to have pink. Now, this can obviously get challenging. As you get more colors, you're going to get colors that are blended together. I recommend looking up palettes that work really well, differentiating the amount of rooms that you have. So if you have a total of 12 rooms, try and find a nice palette of 12 colors that work well together, but are easily identifiable for one another. And this is when I would also go in and change the text. So this can be waiting area. You can change the length of the text box so it doesn't wrap when it doesn't need to. The admin area and the toilets. Once you are at this point, you've actually finished making your blocking diagram template for this project, as I had mentioned earlier. So I would recommend, once you get to the point where you have typed in all of your room names and you have created all of the colors for each of those room names, you'll actually want to stop at that point, because this is now the perfect checkpoint to come back to each time you're wanting to make a different blocking diagram. So at this time, you'll go up and you'll do File, Save As, and you will save it to your project folder and simply call it the IBD3024 commercial project blocking template. From this point on, as we start creating potential blocking diagrams, you will then do a save as, and then you can call it blocking option 1, blocking option 2, blocking option A and B, whichever alphanumeric naming process you want to do and be consistent with. So let's create our first one. For square rooms, those are going to be the easiest because we'll simply be able to select the square next to the room name, copy it, and paste it into the area, and then drag the corners to get the shape that you would like to represent that space. The reception is probably going to be in this front area, and then the amount of space that reception will take up could differentiate between different blocking diagram options. Now let's say the waiting area is above and to the right of the reception area. We have a couple options here. You can either select the square next to waiting area and copy and paste that twice. And then you can get 2 different shapes that you can drag your squares into in order to get non-square shapes. Now that can lead to some items not lining up, and so that brings us to the second option, which is to simply draw a polygon. Now when you start the polygon tool, it's not going to know which color you're going to want to go with, so you can either come up and try and find the color that you were doing for your line and fill pattern, but if you used colors that are outside of the normal ones, or you cannot eyeball which of the colors matches the room area, you can also, after starting the polygon tool, come up to line and use the eyedropper tool in order to pick the color for the line and the color for the fill by eyedropping it over the area with the room. This now allows you to draw your non-square rectangular shapes. When you click, it's going to start drawing the boundary of the shape that you want. And since this is a blocking diagram, you are likely going to need to keep it as polygonal shapes with 90-degree angles. So while you're drawing your line, you're going to hold Shift, and then now your line is going to be stuck on vertical and horizontals. So you can now use a few clicks to go around, draw the shape that you want, and then when you click back on the original location, it's going to draw in the fill. You can use the corners to adjust the shape, and you can drag the shape if you would like to move it or create boundaries between the areas. The last note, I just want to talk about text one more time. Typically for blocking diagrams, telling where rooms are going to be going may not be enough in order to convey the story to your client or other coordinators on what you're wanting to get out of your blocking diagram and what you're wanting to get out of each of the options. You may need to justify why you put certain items in certain places, and sometimes it could be helpful to put it directly on the paper so that everybody remembers to discuss that. So over here, we've got text boxes that we can add in directly on top of the squares, just as we were doing with these text boxes over here. But we also have a couple other text box options as well. We have the cloud text box, which allows you to drag over an area, this is the method used for developing red lines in construction documents. But what we're going to do instead is the callout tool. When you select the callout tool, if you click and drag on a point, that is going to be the end of your arrow for your text. And then when you let go, it's going to drop the text box. We can now say reception with waiting room seating behind helps enforce security and visitor assistance. Justifying why we may have put the reception directly in front of the door to where you'd have to go to the seating area behind. As with all the other tools that we've used, this callout tool also allows you to change the color of the line, which is going to be the arrow in the leader, and the color of the text. Once you have gone through and developed your first option for your blocking diagram, you would then go in and save it as option 1. And then you can reopen the template that you created before in order to start putting together your second option. Or maybe one of your other options is similar to a previous option you've done, and you just want to do a save as over a previous option to just delete and move around some items. And these are the fundamentals that you need in order to develop a blocking diagram using Bluebeam.